Why does Halo 3 have better physics than Halo Infinite? How does a game from 2007, 14 years prior to Halo Infinite, seem technically superior in terms of how objects interact with one another? Halo is a very unique game. Very rarely do you come across a title where physics are so interactable with one another, and in my eyes, it's what makes the game so special. So before I answer why Halo 3 has better physics than Halo Infinite, I need to elaborate on what are game physics. Game physics are how elements of the sandbox interact with one another. These objects include scenery objects like fusion coils or cones, anything that isn't nailed down. It also includes vehicles, weapons, equipment, and even the player. My entire YouTube channel first got attention because I showcased cool Halo physics, so I feel especially passionate when making this video. I also want to add this isn't a Bungieverse 343 issue either. Halo Reach was significantly worse in terms of game physics versus Halo 3, and Halo 5 Guardians had great Halo physics, but more on that later. Halo is one of those rare games where many objects that are scattered throughout the map interact with one another to create unique scenarios not seen in other games. For example, being splattered by a cone on Halo 3 for over a decade was considered iconic. Each Halo game has its own quirks, these special features that make them great, and where Halo Infinite doesn't have as many as Halo 3, there are still some gems I'll touch on today too. So with that said, why does Halo 3 have better physics than Halo Infinite? This is why. To start with, we'll talk about the Chopper, a vehicle that has only been in Halo 3 and Halo Infinite. It provides a great example as to one game versus another. In Halo 3, when a chopper explodes, the debris of the vehicle can tumble down the hill, have collision, and actually damage an enemy. So many famous clips in the day, and thank you to the Halo 3 boys for sending this over to me, have the wheel of the chopper hitting an enemy, splattering them, and it feels very Halo. The chopper in Halo Infinite has zero collision. Once the Halo Infinite chopper explodes, even though it leaves behind debris, it does zero damage. What is worse is the object can be shot through. The worst thing about it is that debris piece also has desync. That means on one player's screen it might be there, on the others it might not be, which means you might get shot through the debris piece as it doesn't contain collision, but on the other player's screen that debris piece might not even be there. Now, because I'm being fair and balanced, yes, you can launch vehicle debris on Halo Infinite. If you use a rocket launcher, a skewer, and the new repulsing equipment, yes, you can achieve the same thing with Halo 3. This raises an even bigger problem: explosions themselves. And no, I'm not talking about the visual explosions, Halo 3 versus Infinite, but yes, Halo 3's explosions do look better than Infinite's too. Halo 3, it would multiply the power between explosions versus Halo Infinite. For example, on Halo 3, if you put down a fusion coil, a trip mine, you grab a gravity hammer, and then throw a plasma grenade, when you combine all of those explosions at once, it will actually multiply that explosion and launch the vehicle exponentially based on how many things you've added. Halo Infinite, on the other hand, and it's very bizarre, even if multiple people all shoot it at once, it only calculates the velocity of the last person who hit it. For some reason, Halo Infinite cannot calculate multiple explosions happening at once. Launching the vehicles themselves isn't the important thing here, but it's a great visual example of the physics engine when you combine multiple explosions at once. When you guys say to me, Remy, why don't you do as many trick shots on Halo Infinite? It's so very limited. I've done everything that is possible already. Now, as I mentioned before, Halo Infinite has the repulsor equipment, and with it, you can do something very Halo, which is launch objects into another to splatter them. The problem with this is it took forgers almost 2 years to get a movable box object into Halo Infinite matchmaking. Outside of vehicles, and it's only on 1 to 2 maps, which seems like a missed opportunity, you can punch and or repulse boxes into enemies. Halo 3, everything was destroyable, launchable, movable, interactable. Halo Infinite has very little in terms of scenery pieces, and a majority of those pieces that are on the map have been removed by 343 due to desync, and if you do use the repulsor equipment on them, they do 0 damage. The best example of Halo 3 I can give in regards to interactable physics is this trick jump you're watching on screen here. No way would anything like this be possible on Infinite. Now, earlier in the video, I mentioned how 343 Industries fixed desync by introducing the new networking model. This new networking model was supposed to be legacy in the way that it would replicate the old networking of past Halo games. Really everything that came before it. Halo 5, Halo 4, Halo Reach, Halo 3, all the way back to Combat Evolved. Unfortunately, during this change, and I've pointed it out to 343 when the update happened, 1, the higher ping you have, the heavier you become. 2, even on lower ping, for some unknown reason, your player can enter a heavy state and the physics engine will literally break. On Halo Infinite now, if you play above 50 ping and a player barely brushes up against you with a vehicle, the vehicle will lose all weight and just collapses in on itself. Halo 3, on the other hand, had 0 desync, and physics, regardless of the connection you played on, functioned as intended. As time has gone on, and Halo Reach is included in this, design decisions were made and less care was taken on the very tiny little details that, in my opinion, change how the game plays at a core level. Many things that were iconic Halo moments in the past just aren't possible anymore, for one or more of the reasons I listed above. This isn't me having a go either, I'm just pointing out the changes from 2007 to now and how things have changed. I saw so many videos that were like, oh my god, water physics, the player doesn't interact with it as good as 2007, or fruit physics, you can't destroy the apples or the bananas or the watermelons. That always made me laugh. Yes, Halo 3 has better water physics than Halo Infinite. If a Spartan is in the water, he will float. Banshee debris will float in the water. No, that doesn't work on Halo Infinite, but in that regard, it has no effect on the gameplay, so it's less important than the things I listed before. Now, speaking of design decisions, we have the sniper rifle. If you were around back in 2007 to 2010 and you watched any viral Halo clip, the sniper rifle ricochet was a staple again and again and again. There's a famous Halo 3 clip where at the start of a game, a ranked general player, the highest level in the game, ricocheted a bullet to snipe all 4 players on the enemy team. Or another example, where the sniper rifle bullet ricochets 10 times and then snipes a player in the head. Every Halo game, including Halo 5, has had this, but unfortunately Halo Infinite removed it. The weirdest decision of all is 343 Industries kept a bank shot medal, which is literally a ricochet, but only for one of their shotguns. So not only is the physics engine on Halo Infinite not as good as Halo 3, but developers ever since Halo 3 have made design decisions that have eroded key Halo physics interactions, and that's continued to this day. One of the biggest examples is Halo 3 in 2007. If there was a ledge, there is a very good chance you could jump off of it. People back in the day made trick jumping videos. I showed the one with a cone before, but if there was any sort of ledge or rock that was sticking out, if you were a talented player, you could jump off of it. Halo Infinite, 343's actually gone out of their way to remove many such instances where creative players have found unique ways to traverse the map. Nowadays, it feels like game developers, and Halo isn't the only one that does this, where they tell you the way you can play. So many cool things found by the community are pretty much patched out instantly, and I think if something unique is found and it isn't hurting the game as a whole, that it should be left in the game. The reason why I bring up jumping in Halo, design decisions by the developers, and this is where I'm going to tie it all into a nice little bow, is that just in the last 6 months, 343 brought back the ability to use a grenade to jump a little bit higher on Halo Infinite, a staple that has been in the game since Halo Combat Evolved was removed. Fast forward to almost 3 years later, and at last, 343 has added it back. These core Halo things are so important. They fundamentally affect the game as a franchise. One small thing might not look impactful, but when you consider the scenery pieces that are movable, the explosions that can multiply together, the intentional design decisions that neuter the Halo physics, if you put all of those things back into the game, you would find it's a completely different experience than the one we have on Infinite. Some of these things 343 has decided not to include. Other things, and I think the slip space engine is the culprit, they had so many issues with this game, it A, just wasn't possible, B, they just didn't have the time, or C, it was just overlooked completely as nobody at the studio actually knew about these tiny little details. Now you know who does know about these details? You, the Halo community, because I put out a request, I did a tweet and said, why is Halo 3's physics so much better than every game that came after it? And I got answers for every single Halo game post Halo 3. For Halo Reach, Bungie actually reworked the networking, so a lot of the cool ragdoll physics you experienced in Halo 3 were toned down or removed completely. Halo 4, a design decision was made that opted for non-collidable surfaces, meaning you slipped off most geometry pieces if you tried to be creative just like Halo 3 and jump over the map. It's ironic because Halo 5 was actually one of the best games in terms of destructible physics, a return to form with how players interacted with objects, so 343 is definitely capable of delivering on this, which is why I thought it was more the slipspace engine that gave them so many problems. At the end of the day, I want the key takeaway from this video to be the following. Halo 3's physics engine was comprehensive. Every single little nitty-gritty detail was taken into account. Yes, you can include the water if you want, as I know there's a Bungie vidoc of them actually creating the water itself. Halo Infinite, on the other hand, where it still has some great physics interactions that I love, really falls down in comparison to Halo 3. I also want a key takeaway to be, this hasn't just happened overnight. These things that made Halo 3 so very special have been eroded over the past 17 years. Any objective Halo fan, when they compare the two physics engines, are like, wow, Halo 3's was just more comprehensive, and it didn't have desync between the player, the objects, and any other movable object in the game. The goal of this video is hopefully somebody at 343 Industries sees this, and whatever game they work on next, they prioritize Halo physics, how objects interact with one another, and above all, don't remove things that don't need to be removed. Grenade jumping is a staple, letting the community create how they want to play is a staple, focusing on the tiny little nitty-gritty details would be fantastic. So guys, that is why I think Halo 3 has better physics than Halo Infinite. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I am very passionate about Halo physics, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts. But thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.